So, ladies and gents, Dune. It's just come out, sort of, in the UK, USA, and on HBO Max as well. It has been out in other parts of the world, so you guys have obviously been enjoying it before everyone else. But the word on everyone's lips has basically been, how is this movie ever going to make the money back? How are we going to get this part 2 of this film? How are we going to get a sequel? This is only part 1 of well, presumably 2 films, although where it left off, you could probably fit 3 films, actually, in fairness, a trilogy of the first book. But it was touted as the first half of the first book. So everyone has been questioning, are we going to get a sequel? You read from the title, and this isn't clickbait, the Dune sequel is confirmed. Now, people would argue the toss otherwise, but we're going to dive into this because it seems very clear-cut to me. It seems really, really clear-cut that we are getting a sequel. And this is to Deadline. This is an exclusive to Deadline. I'm going to cover a few other bits and pieces. And it seems that their strategy's bizarrely now not just money. And it does surprise me that it is Warner Brothers that seems to be able to make this decision. Because, of course, it's a legendary production. Predominantly, they put up 75% of this production, and Warner Brothers put up 25% and distribute it. So it's not a whole lot of costings involved for Warner Brothers, but it does seem that they actually have the deciding power here. But I guess the real good news here is that we're going to get a sequel, and I think that is great news. But as much as it is confirmed here, and I stand by that, it is confirmed. The wording is they don't mince the words, right? Until it's greenlit. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So let's take a look at it, right? Let's take a look at this article and decide for yourself. So here we go. It's quite clear that the availability of Warner Brothers' theatrical slate on HBO Max day and date this year has impacted the studio's US box office results. Undoubtedly it has. But they were also very, very smart in giving everyone that they worked with a payoff. So they didn't come into any of the issues that Disney did. And they paid everyone off, and everyone was happier. Very smart of them. This has either led to a film seeing a big drop in weekend 2 at the box office, after a solid first weekend, or in the case of New Line's Sopranos prequel feature, The Many Saints of Newark, nothing to brag about at the box office, with 8.1 million earned in its first 10 days. I think that's actually quite a bad example to work with, because The Many Saints of Newark is not a film that had a lot of adverts. There was not a lot floating around on YouTube about it in terms of adverts. There was not a lot of promotional material, and as much as The Sopranos is something which loads of people loved, it didn't seem that there was any buzz for The Many Saints of Newark. Just didn't seem that there was an interest there. So it's not actually that surprising that it only earned 8.1 million in 10 days. That's, to me, is not surprising from looking at the industry as a whole and what has buzz and what doesn't. This didn't at all. Now, they say James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, a reboot for the DC franchise, opened to a very lackluster 26.2 million without any tentpole competition over its first weekend. And a paltry result that was 80% below the first 2016's movie record of 133.7 million August opening. That's not a surprise either, quite frankly. And it does baffle me that Deadline hasn't, literally doesn't even mention this, is that obviously the first one was much maligned. Most people didn't like the first one, right? So, yeah, no. Why would it suddenly hit loads and loads of money? Come on, behave. And also, it was one of those movies that was released in the weird time where things were just sort of being open now. And people were just like, is everything open? Everything's open. I can go to the theatre. I can go to the theatre. It was that weird time. So anyway, here we get into the real meat of this, and obviously why you clicked on the video. So as WarnerMedia's day and date HBO Max experiment completely jinxed the potential for future franchise feature sequels given their lackluster box office track record this year. Note the pics are available on HBO Max during their first 31 days in theatre, then exclusive to cinemas during their second month before entering the standard home windows. All eyes are on the domestic box office performance this weekend, of Warner Brothers and Legendary's $165 million Denis Villeneuve-directed sci-fi production, Dune. I still don't believe it cost $165 million unless there are huge tax breaks where they filmed this in, I think it was in Budapest if I remember rightly. I cannot believe it cost $165 million. The amount of CG work, unless they farmed it out to Russians, because we know that the Russians can make cheap ass CG and it looks good. Sputnik, I'm looking at you. Unless they farmed it out somewhere else and it wasn't done with Western productions, how on earth did this movie cost $165 million? I have no idea. But here we go. The director originally conceived a 2-picture series with the most recent release being Part 1, which actually... So I've watched it, I've done my review, leave a link above. Very, very smartly, they actually open the movie with Dune Part 1. Good. Good. Needs to be. People need to know it's only Part 1. What if the film falls greatly short of its 30 to 35 million domestic projection? Is Dune dust? And here we have it. Here is the response, right? And I think this is clear-cut confirmation. Will we have a sequel to Dune? If you watch the movie, you see how it ends. I think you pretty much know the answer to that. It's basically saying, yeah, we're going to get a sequel because it ends on a cliffhanger. I mean, that's confirmation, is it not? Again, just wait, this gets further. That's from WarnerMedia Studios and Networks Chair and CEO Ann Sarnoff. She told Deadline yesterday in a sit-down chat regarding the conglom's full support of Dune 2. In regards to proceeding with sequels to this year's theatrical HBO Max slate, WarnerMedia CEO Jason Kilar says the studio's, this is what's interesting, the studio's decisions are well informed and based on audience response, not just based on box office. Since when? So is this suddenly a big tax wash? Like, since when? So strange. Isn't that strange? But then they say even like, so basically, the question is, will we have a sequel to Dune? If you watch the movie and you see how it ends, this is I quote, and I think you pretty much know the answer to that. So we're getting a sequel to Dune. That's it. It's happening. This is confirmation. We are getting a sequel. Again, not greenlit as yet, so anything could happen. But I mean, it's pretty clear cut, is it not? And then they say this, which is interesting. We're thrilled with the results of Many Saints, Sarnoff told Deadline. Yes, the box office was not quite as big, but back again to the demographics of who's going to theatres. On the other hand, you see Sopranos pop into the top 10 of the most viewed series on the service. So they're relating this all the way back to HBO Max. And they're like, well, if we do a prequel series, people might watch that and then want to come to HBO Max. Smart. They've obviously had quite a big booster from the Many Saints of Newark and people then staying on HBO Max, which is good for their stock. It's given it an entirely new life. We're talking to David about a new series, Sopranos related on HBO Max. It's the movie literally lifted the Sopranos franchise in a new way, so you can't measure it in and of itself in the box office. So that series that was announced, the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood series on HBO Max, definitely ties in with the reason why we're getting a Dune 2. It absolutely does. Without a shadow of a doubt it does. And then they say this, right? The fourth Matrix, entitled The Matrix Resurrections, was originally conceived to reboot the series on the big screen. What happens if HBO Max gets in the way of that? Know that the movie is the last title in WarnerMedia's theatrical day-and-date HBO Max 2021 program. Said Sarnoff, anytime Lana Wachowski wants to make a movie, we're all in. They're very positive. So there you go. Are we going to get a sequel to Dune? Looks like it, doesn't it? Quite literally, if you watch the ending, I think you know the answer to that. Yeah, okay, we're getting a sequel then. There you go, ladies and gents. What do you think to this? Let me know down below in the comments. If you're new here, please do hit subscribe. If you want to support the channel further, check the description box, because we've got memberships, we've got Patreon, a PO box. Yes, that's right, got a PO box, send me stuff. As well as my second channel. Cheers, guys. Take care.